Are you ready to sew up some summer fun? Well, let's make some cornhole bags that are custom embroidered on the Baby Lock Vesta. And at the very end, this is such a fast, quick, and easy project. It's a pool flyer. Yeah, you use a pool noodle. Well, you'll have to stay to the end. I'm Kathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. We're going to sew up some summer fun. So let's sew up some fun today on the Baby Lock Vesta. We'll talk about two different fun projects. We're going to make some embroidered cornhole bags, and I have a really fun one, which is a flying disc, which is just, hey, talk about summer fun. I chose the Vesta because, well, I wanted to talk a little bit about a midline embroidery machine. You know, I do a lot of sewing tech talks on higher end machines, but you know, you don't have to. If you don't want to make that big of an investment, the Baby Lock Vesta in this midline range is, well, it's a great way to get into embroidery if you're not really sure, or, well, you just need a great embroidery machine and you just don't want to make that big investment. I love the Vesta because it has a lot of the features that I really look for in an embroidery machine, especially at this midline range. It has a color screen, which means you can see the colors that the embroidery design is supposed to be. Very important if you're doing like a realistic animal. Super easy to use. It's wireless, which means I can send a design wirelessly in from my computer using the free Baby Lock Data Design Transfer app on my computer, and it comes with some nice size hoops. You know, when you're first starting to do embroidery, it's nice to be able to do a bigger design or be able to move a design around if you haven't hooped it so perfectly to begin with. So I think these larger hoops and all the other features of the machine, it's a sewing machine too. You know, you can get this machine as embroidery only. If you already have a great sewing machine and you want all these cool embroidery features, call customer service and they can get you hooked up. But speaking of ease of hooping, what I'm going to use today when I'm making my little embroidered cornhole bags is I'm going to use, now this is optional for the machine, I'm going to use the 5x7 magnetic hoop, which makes hooping so easy. All you do is you put the hoop on the machine, put your fabric on the top and snap the magnets down. Oops, snap the magnets down and you're already hooped. Now to make these cornhole bags, I have a couple supplies and they're all listed in the handout. I have a handout for this and all my other Sewing Tech Talk videos. So it tells you the process, how many supplies to get the size of a regulation cornhole bag. But let me tell you a little bit about before we get started. I'm using some canvas. Now you don't have to use canvas. I read on the internet, the source of all knowledge, that you can do all kinds of different fabrics to make cornhole bags. Sometimes they make them slicker so they slide easier. A regulation cornhole bag is 6 inches square and it's 1 pound filled with your choice. You can fill it with the traditional corn. And you can get corn from, you know, the supermarket. You could go to a feed store. You could use the regular corn. But something about the organic material, say you accidentally leave these out and get moisture, that organic material, corn or whatever you fill it with, it could mold and it might be attractive to critters because corn is delicious. But you can also get pellets if you go online and you look for, I think, poly pellets. They even have some out there that are specifically designed for cornhole bags. They don't mold and I'm sure they're not edible. So that's another option. You're going to need thread that matches for sewing this design up and maybe some scissors, some marking devices. I did use corn because I think I'm going to order those other pellets, but I wanted to show you this with some corn. You're going to need some stabilizer for your embroidery. I used a heavier weight cutaway. It was fusible. You're going to need some canvas. I only got a 1/4 yard and I did them all in one continuous. It saved fabric and saved stabilizer because this made it easier to hoop one right after the other. And of course you'll need embroidery thread, and I've set up my machine with an embroidery bobbin. So we're pretty much ready to go. Now I sent designs over using that free Baby Lock design database transfer, And it's so easy because I can store and organize my designs on my computer. So I sent those over. If you look at the machine here, these are the built-in designs, all the different fonts, and there's tons of built-in designs with the machine. But I'm doing my cornhole bags custom with some fun tattoo embroidery designs. I thought my grandson would get a big kick out of that. And you know, you can use licensed designs too. They have them out there. So the internet is full of embroidery designs, and a lot of them are going to fit on your machine because you have those big hoops that you can use. So I'm going to bring in the design that I sent over. I could have designs saved to my machine. I could have designs saved on a USB stick, or I sent designs over using that design database transfer, and it was super, super easy. I'm going to do this one today. That's the last one. I think that's the last one I need to do. Set, and there it is. The reason I like this machine is you can see the colors and you can change them before you do an embroidery. So for example, I think I want that horseshoe to be a little bit brighter. So let's go in and let's select the horseshoe. There's the first color, the leaves, and I'm just going to go and toggle through until I find that horseshoe. See how easy it is to find the design that you want to change, because you can see a representation of it. And I'm just going to make it a brighter yellow color. I think that's going to look better on my little cornhole bag. Okay, so edit end. I can move it around, but it was really quite easy to hoop it with my magnetic hoop, so I really don't need to do that. I'm pretty much right in the middle, but I can move it just a little bit if I need to. And I'm going to go to embroidery. There we go. It shows me the first color is Kelly, where it's going to be, and this design's going to take a few minutes. 52 to be exact, because it's a pretty intense design. I think through the magic of video, we're going to go into hyperdrive, and you're going to see this stitch out a lot faster than I'm going to see it stitch out. So let's put some of that green thread on there, and let's go. So I finished the embroidery, and while I was embroidering, I multitasked. So while I was doing that, I finished sewing together around my, well, not all of my little red cornhole bags. I want to show you how I do one. But it's finished. Look how cool this looks. Every time I do one, I can't pick out my favorite. These are so cool. Look how beautiful that embroidery is. I'm going to hold it up. See how pretty that embroidery is? Look at that. Isn't that cool? Here's another one of the designs. Look how fun that is. I think my grandson's really going to enjoy his new fancy cornhole bags. But we have to sew them together. So let's do that. So now, notice, here's my magnetic hoop. It's ready for me to just put on the next hoop, the next part, and do another one if I need to. I don't even have to take the base of the hoop off. So it's a pretty cool little hoop. Very exciting. Okay, so we're going to switch the machine over to sewing. We're in embroidery now, and we have the embroidery unit on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the embroidery unit off, but I'm going to turn the machine off. Here we go. And set the embroidery unit aside. And switch the machine over to sewing. When I turn it on, it goes, oh, let's have some fun sewing. And I'm going to open up my little toy box in the front. We'll take off the embroidery foot and put on the sewing foot. It has this little fun spot where it stays in its little toy box up there, and we're going to put on the sewing foot. We're going to replace that bobbin thread with some sewing thread that matches our little cornhole bag. I'm going to put some red in because I'm sewing the red ones up. Okay, now, so here's I have two cool tricks that I think you're going to appreciate when sewing these little bags together. Now, if you stuck with me this long and you're sitting there thinking, I don't think I need cornhole bags. Why am I still watching this? Well, if you are a sewer and if you've ever cut out a large piece of fabric on a small table and you've chased it to the other side because it keeps falling to the other side. You need little bean bags at least, my friend. So these little bean bags I have, and when I'm sewing and I'm cutting on my table, what I do is I lay these on there and the fabric's not going to slide off the other side. So at least you need a couple of these to control your fabric on the table. So now we're set up for sewing, and it's really easy to pick a stitch on the machine because all I do is touch the stitch that I want and the machine automatically sets up for it. So I'm going to do a straight stitch, and I want you to notice, here's the first trick. Notice how I cut out my little bag. I cut out my bag, I left an opening that's wide enough at the top so I can insert my super expensive, not, cardboard tube for filling up the bag. Pretty neat, right? I bet you know where I got my little cardboard tube at. But I need an opening big enough for that. So I'm going to sew here, here, and then I'm going to show you a corner trick. The seam on this bag is 1/2 inch. Remember, you have your handout that shows you all the dimensions. So we're going to get ready and we're going to start to sew. We're going to start to sew here and pivot down here, keeping our 1/2 inch seam. Now the machine has automatic pivot, which means I can stop and the needle stays in the fabric and I can automatically turn and continue to sew, and the foot's going to come down automatically. I'm going to sew off and use the automatic scissors on the machine to clip that thread. So now here is my corner. Normally when I'm sewing, I would trim this corner in to turn it, but I'm not going to do that with my little bag. And I want my corners to be kind of neat. So what I'm doing is I'm going to turn down this edge so that that seam is right along the top. And I'm going to continue to sew all 4 corners that way. So I'm going to continue around, and can you see how that corner is turned? When I turn the bag right side out, what happens is this corner just pops out. When I come to the end, I'm going to pivot up here and sew towards the edge. And through the magic of video, I've already done that. So once you get that done, what you're going to do is you're going to want to turn your little bag right side out. And then all you have to do is fill it and sew that opening closed. But you're going to thank me with that little tube part on the top. I'm going to push out the little corners, and because I folded them that way, they're going to push out pretty nice. And I know it's just a cornhole bag, but we want it to look nice, right? Especially, you know, you could sell these. This would be a good project to make and sell at a craft fair. So there we go. But I don't want my little opening to be tucked in. I want it to be pulled out. And you can see how there's a little, let me pull it so that you can see it. There's a little dip right here that normally I would clip that corner and turn it so that it would turn easy. But I don't want it to. I want this to, when I get finished filling, I want this to come on in just like that so I can sew that opening closed. So I filled one already using my magic little cardboard tube, and this is just going to pop right in the bag. Pretty slick. Look how cool that is. Did you see? I didn't have to fuss with it at all. So now, this is filled with a pound of whatever filling you choose to use. So let's sew that opening closed. What I'm going to do is, it's easy on the machine to find just a little zigzag stitch. Here's one right now. And that's pretty good, but I can modify it. I can come on up here and make that width a little bit narrower, and I can make that length a little tiny bit longer. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew along this edge and just zigzag right over that edge by pushing all the corn kernels to the left. It's a little bit of a fussy, but it's not too bad. If it's hard to do, you might have overfilled your bag. And just like that, my bag's sewn closed. You could actually go around the whole bag if you don't like the look of just this part on the side. I could use a straight stitch too. I could sew it by hand, but these bags are going to get a lot of use. And I really think I need to keep a machine sewing on the edge. Okay, there's one. I have 7 more to go. But let's do our other super quick, so fun project. We're going to make a little flyer. It is so much fun. This is my little fabric flyer. Why did I come up with this? Well, not even I can hurt myself if this is thrown around at the pool. And the supplies are really reasonable. I did use a fabric called Ripstop, and it's a nylon fabric that's super light. But you could use just about any fabric, because if you play with this in the pool, you don't want it to get sogged down. You could use quilting fabric. You could use fabric that matches your cute little bathing suit. That would be adorable. Or bathing suit fabric, any lightweight fabric. The amount is in your handout. I just used a dinner plate to trace around on the ripstop. I just traced around. Now, this ripstop is super easy to sew, but it's not so much fun to cut because it's super slippery. So what I did is I put pins in all the corners, and I'm just going to sew along my line. Now, do you see this part here on the top? That's the opening. Very similar to the opening that we made on the cornhole bag. Because what we're going to do is we're going to insert part of a pool noodle. So if you go and get a pool noodle at the very inexpensive store, this one happened to have segments. I just cut a segment out. This is 30 inches long, and it might be the right length for you. I just traced around using a dinner plate. And I leave the opening big enough to insert my pool noodle segment, including the diameter. Let's switch over to yellow thread because I don't think I'm going to use red for this. I'm going to take out my red bobbin, put in my yellow bobbin. It's a quick set bobbin, so I don't have to pull it up when I start to sew. Take out my red thread. It threads just about what any other sewing machine, really. With the difference in Baby Lock is there's a stopper here. You're not supposed to thread the machine with the presser foot down, so there's a little blocker here that reminds you about that. I'm going to thread through here. And one of my most favorite features, let's put this up here so we don't get caught on the edge of the spool. One of my favorite features, where's my thread? Whoops, where's my thread? It's yellow, it's hard to see. You come down here, lay the thread in the little slot, trim it, push the lever, and it's automatically threaded. Pretty sweet, right? Now all we have to do is sew around on the line. We're going to leave our opening, and we're going to sew around our little flyer. Whoops, we don't want to zigzag. Don't forget. Super easy. We're going to go back. All we have to do is touch the stitch we want, and everything on the machine is set up. Now this might be a fun project that you might want to do with kids. Now on this machine, that could be super simple. There's a speed regulator on the top, and that lowers the top speed of the machine, so it's going to sew at a kid's speed. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm going to go full speed. Now all I have to do is trim that seam right around the edge. So trim around your little seam, and I recommend doing it on a table. What you should do is come around and do little clips around the outside edge, carefully, not sewing into the fabric. So after you do that, you're going to take your little fabric flyer, kind of looks like a balloon, and turn it right side out through the hole. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to insert our little pool noodle segment. Now the pool noodle segment doesn't have to be beautifully cut, but do be careful while you're cutting it. I used a serrated knife. take your segment. Now this is 30 inches long, and I used an 11-inch diameter plate to draw, but I'm just going to insert my pool noodle through my little opening. The fussiest part of the whole thing. And there it mostly is. Now I'm going to shove that pool noodle away from the edge, and I'm going to close that just like I did for that little bag. And I'm going to do that zigzag right along there. Now, it's just a pool toy. It doesn't have to be that beautiful. You can see the pool noodle through, but if I'd gotten a matching pool noodle and I did some embroidery on here, you could see how this could be a kind of a special little thing. And the cost is very minimal. So let's do that zigzag around that outside edge. Super easy to find my stitch. Now, I could have put it in the memory. I didn't remember to do that. Let's take it down and get something that looks pretty good. Okay, and let's just sew our opening closed. Almost done. Now all we need to do is sew on the inside, and that's sewing on the inside. Well, that's going to keep our pool noodle in place. Now, this machine has a super high extra lift on the foot, and I should be able to squish my pool needle and get it through there. Let's see if I can. Whew, that worked out pretty good. I'm going to switch back to straight stitch. I'm going to remember this time. And I'm just going to sew on the inside edge. I'm going to use the edge of the foot, and there's really no big stress to this. I am going to lower my foot to see where I'm at, and you might want to pin the different parts just to make sure everything kind of stays in place. But it kind of looks just like this. Now that is a quick, fun toy. You might even be able to do that with the kids, just to show them how cool sewing is. But, so fun. The Vesta, you can make some pretty fun stuff. Wouldn't this be adorable with some embroidery? So, go out, have some fun this summer. But don't forget, sewing, well, sewing can get you halfway there.
For more information on this incredible product, click on the link to see our current special offer. You can email us at customerservice@moores-sew.com or call us at 1-800-865-9664.